All right, is it recording?
I think so.
All right, here we are on The Blind Man in Black. And this is fucking awesome. I'm really just hearing his voice again has excited me and rejuvenated me. But everybody that is listening and watching, I'm here with director, screenwriter, actor, anti-porn activist, and friend, Michael Lovan. Thank you for being here.
It is my pleasure to be here with you, Brian. I've been looking forward to talking with you for a long time. You were, uh, I'd say, my first hero in college, and so I feel like it's due time. I've come to collect some of your time to talk to you today. I'm interviewing you. You're not interviewing me.
Oh wow, the tables have turned. Okay, well we flipped that. Well, I guess I should let you begin.
Oh, so unprepared. But yeah,
Let's set the stage, if you will.
yeah.
So everybody, Michael and I met at UCLA. I was getting my master's in directing at the UCLA School of Theater, Film, and Television, and specifically, I think you were one of my students that I TA'd for. Is that correct?
That is correct. And
How did I do on your grades? Because I feel like I was probably too strict. I should have just given everybody A's and said fuck it. But
I
uh,
I did very well under your tutelage.
oh,
I
good.
have no complaints, hence why you remained a hero.
Oh, good. Okay, excellent. So you were a student, and also I cast you in my production of Kafka's Metamorphosis, and that was my second year of production, which was actually I loved that show. I really had a lot of fun, and I was so glad you were involved. And I want to say something. After the show ended, you did a drawing of it was kind of like a drawing of the play, and then I was in it, and I kind of had blue hair,
Yep.
and I still have it.
Oh,
Um, and I can't see it anymore, of course, but I've always kind of treasured that and appreciated it, and I wanted to thank you for that.
oh, my pleasure. I remember that drawing, and I remember how much that show meant to me. I tracked down your composers for the show, and I got a copy of the soundtrack which they had created for the show, and I still have it on semi-regular rotation in my home if I just want to do some writing and just play something. That
Holy shit, really?
Oh yeah, I really really loved Metamorphosis. If I hadn't been invited to be a part of it, or rather auditioned to be a part of it, I would have loved the show anyway. Uh,
Right.
so it was we met at that time when you kind of move away from uh I love high school theater, but it's when you move on from high school theater and to uh, you know shows that mean something, shows
Mm.
that are big, shows that have a lot of work, hundreds if not thousands of hours of collective work between everyone to execute a vision for money, because people have to pay to watch these shows. And Metamorphosis was really, in a sense, it helped to usher me into uh, new ways of thinking about what art can be. And it was a metamorphosis for me, so to speak. And I remember drawing pictures uh, and giving one to you in particular because it just meant a lot. And our relationship didn't end there. My first year there, you continued to be a part of my existence at UCLA, including being a TA in a class my junior year as well, um, for directing with Nancy Keystone, I believe.
Okay.
And once again, you were always there, just kind of helping to guide me. And I might be putting the cart before the horse, but I just want to share while I'm talking. I remember directing a scene and feeling so bad about it. I just felt so bad, and I thought, like, I'm just not good. I'm not good at the things I want to do. And you took me aside, and this has always stayed with me. You told me, Michael, it's not that you're not creative, it's not that you're not brilliant, it's not that you don't have amazing ideas. I think all of that can be true, but you don't have confidence in yourself. And you're kind of shitting in the bed before you let your projects kind of like have their own life and let people respond to them the way art's meant to be responded to. And that really stuck with me because I hung I hung my head low for most of college and well into adulthood. And that lesson of just like, well, no, just be bold with your choices and believe in what you're saying, that really influenced the direction of my creative life. And for that, I am always going to be grateful to you.
I'm deeply moved. Thank you so much.
Dude,
I, I remember that. I remember, I don't, I remember the feeling. I remember the feeling of that moment, and I remember the piece that you directed was deeply personal for you, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember that.
And I remember, yeah, I mean, I, I must say that I deeply appreciated and appreciate the person that you are, because I felt there was a sincerity, a gentleness, a kindness, and uh, uh, there was love just in your expression, and it was a gentle love, and I could feel it. I want to let you know that I always felt that and appreciated that within you. Um,
Oh, I appreciate.
but before I start crying, we should probably get to um, how everything began. Where are you from?
Okay.
I remember the you're from like Hanford, aren't you?
Yeah, I am from Hanford.
Yeah, in California.
Yeah.
So what's that place like?
Oh, uh, well, so I was born in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. My parents were military, and we kind of hopped all over until we settled in Hanford around 6 or 7 years of age. So we lived in Germany and in Belgium, and wound up in Hanford, which is it's the Central Valley. It's if you're driving from LA to like the Bay Area off the five, it's that Harris Ranch exit that smells deeply of cow shit and
So it's Auschwitz.
I mean, yeah, kind of. And it's, I had a lot of great friends there and a lot of great teachers in a place that I think runs a little more red than blue. And it's a little more racist and sexist than it is compassionate. But my web of people were not like that. I think I had the I really lucked out in that I had wonderful, influential people around me, namely teachers and my mother, who was a school principal for a continuation high school. But I had to get out. It was doing nothing for me and for my ambitions. I knew I wanted to make movies, make art, make theater, and I got out of there, and UCLA was really the first time really like away from home on my own, and my mind was just constantly blown open day to day. And I'd like to think that the trajectory of growth has not stopped, with my moving from Hanford to Los Angeles, but it continues, to this day, where I'm a father. I'm a husband. I make movies now, and I have very critical opinions about, pornography and a lot of things that I didn't, necessarily hold, that I didn't hold in Hanford, that I didn't hold when I went to UCLA, but just kind of happened, along this journey that we call, life. Um,
By the way, congratulations on the birth of your child. That was relatively recently, right?
Oh man, it was one long sleepless 3 years ago, just about.
It's been 3 years.
been almost 3 years. She is 2 years, 9 months, but it really does feel like it happened recently because I
Right.
haven't slept since she was born. And so just kind of like, it's been one long day.
Right.
She's big though. She could talk and she has opinions too.
Well, I should interview her.
Oh man, she would, she would absolutely love it for about a minute. And then she'd want to go, do something else. Uh,
Right. Right. Yeah, like most of my guests probably want to leave after the first minute. But in any case, let's let's go back a little bit. So you said military. Was your father in the Marines?
No, so my father and my mother were just Army. My dad did work with as an LCSW, like licensed clinical social worker. I don't know if he was licensed yet, but he did work in that field. And to be honest, I don't really know what my mother did, but I know they were both in the Army, and I know that we traveled together.
And how was that? What was it? Was it a strict upbringing, or was it? Did they expect you to join the army, or?
No, not at all. My grandfather on my mother's side was very militaristic,
Mhm.
but also very creative and nurturing in between his bouts of being abusive. And my father's side was not heavily into the army. I'd like to. It's interesting because my parents were, I think, pretty wonderful. My mother's still around. My
Mhm.
father's not, but my mother and father were very determined to give me a life that they had not been provided as children, and not just in the sense of like I get toys when they didn't, but in the sense of I have freedom of choice.
Mhm.
I have viable alternatives between the things I want to do. My father was religious, my mother was religious, but they took me to um, religious services of every denomination.
Mhm.
We went to Catholic services, Baha'i, uh, Judaism by faith, Christian, Presbyterian, everything. My
Mhm.
father, in particular, wanted me to try everything out.
Mhm.
And when we got, through a few years of trying these, he's like, well, which one? And I'm like, none of them. Absolutely none of them. And my parents were okay with that. Never a qualm with me wanting to go into the arts.
Mhm.
They were supportive the entire time. They're like, you're gonna make it one way or another. And I felt that encouragement and that love. And I think that has actually been a wonderful in that I don't feel inhibited creatively. I always had that support growing up. I've never, while I did lack confidence, when I was in the big leagues and in college, I never doubted the ideas and the passion that I had inside me, and I think you could attribute that to a household that was very much not strict, that was very much loving and supportive. And uh, I did well. I the harder the courses I took on, the better I did. I only got straight A's in my life through college when I took on more units. The less
Mhm.
work I took on, the worse I did. And
So you thrive under pressure.
thrive under pressure only.
Mhm.
If you take the pressure away, I flounder, I flop, I sink. And
No, that's interesting that you mentioned that because my wife has discovered that well, she identifies as having ADHD,
mm,
and one of the components of that is needing to feel like that there's pressure to to do something, like people are depending on her.
that's interesting. I've never. I know I was diagnosed not ADHD as a child, but diagnosed with clinical depression and diagnosed with OCD. But ADHD, maybe there's something to that because if there's no pressure, I get depressed very quickly.
Huh. Well, let's hold on a second. OCD. Now I have severe OCD. I mean, I have all the OCD,
Okay.
um, everything. So was that something that was developing at UCLA or did it develop earlier?
That was very early on. So if to take I guess a darker detour through childhood, uh, uh, I was put into therapy pretty early on at 12 because I was severely depressed following the death, the murder of a classmate. And I think this is probably going to be a huge anchor for, if we get into anti-porn work later, anti-porn discussion. But a friend of mine was, sexually uh, abused and murdered, and just down the street from me, and that had a huge, lasting impact on my life. Um, in that the sanctity of childhood was erased pretty early on, and I was a walking zombie. And my parents put me into therapy, and therapy. I quit after some odd months, but not before they got in there. Oh yeah, this kid is very OCD. This kid is very depressed, and they found that my OCD. Um, I'd say it doesn't rule my life the way it used to as a child. I have other compulsions that definitely dictate the way I walk around a room today. Um,
Now, are some of the symptoms like germophobia, or
so
is it more like counting or?
counting is huge.
Hmm.
Lines are huge. You lay down 1,000 strands of spaghetti on the floor that are dry, and they're all lined up, but there's one that's out of place. I'll see it, and I'll panic
Ah,
because I got to fix it. Uh,
right.
Counting was a huge thing for me. I never, unfortunately, I got the opposite end of the germophobia. I'm probably like less hygienic than I should be. I unfortunately didn't get that one under my wing. So I
Right.
had to teach myself to be clean. Um,
Well, I mean, that's great that you don't have that one, especially during COVID, because yeah, that's really frustrating. But go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, no, I think that my OCD isn't, uh if we're talking like a scale of 0 to 10, I'm like a 3 now, whereas maybe as a kid I was like a 6 or a 7.
Okay.
So it's very manageable, and I don't even think about it, only in the context of like, you know having gone into therapy, and what the diagnosis was.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
yeah, so you're OCD.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes sense. But what happened is in my first year of undergrad at Cal Arts, I learned that I had Usher syndrome type 2A, which causes blindness and deafness. Now, I grew up with hearing loss and I knew that part of it, but my mother did not want me to know that I had Usher syndrome because I went through kind of a difficult childhood. I had a stepfather that was abusive. And so she kind of thought, he doesn't need to deal with something else right now. So she kind of kept it from me. And my brother has the same condition. And so I learned about it when at the end of my first year at Cal Arts. And then after that, I remember when I was going home for the summer, um, I was just checking things to make sure everything was locked up and turned off. And I went to the stove and I just started like checking the knobs like over and over. And I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And I went, what the fuck am I doing? And
Yeah,
I was like, what is this? And then I left. And then things started to develop. It was a slow onset. It was, but I attribute it to the catalyst was learning that I was going blind.
yeah,
And so, and then it started out with, checking, counting. Then germophobia got real fucking bad. and I still have that issue. And then it developed into something called moral thought action fusion. So it's I have like I have a lot of components of OCD. And when I'm less stressed, they go away. And so it's, right now it's not the best time because of COVID, and then just stress of my job is a very stressful job. So, um, but yeah. But thank you for asking.
Well, I feel like there's a lot here, and I wanna unpack some of this.
Sure.
This is really interesting to me. Have you found that with the loss of your eyesight that there was a huge exacerbation of uh, your anxiety and hence OCD symptoms?
Yeah. I mean, I've always, when I learned that I had the Usher syndrome, that's when the OCD started. And then it got worse, and I took medication. And mostly I took medication for depression. I had
Yeah.
pretty severe depression, and that was a component of it. I mean, the OCD thing was just an aggravating thing that I had to deal with. The more serious part was depression. And when I noticed that when my eyesight got worse, or I would experience a shift in um, my vision loss, it would get worse. The symptoms would get worse. I'd either check more, I'd wash more, or I'd have a moral thought action fusion, which is a weird one, which is basically you think you do something, you like imagine that you're doing something, and then you think that you really did it,
Okay.
and then you're constantly questioning yourself. But I think part of that is because my vision is fading away, so my perception of reality has always been visual. I was always a very, very visual person, and that's how I got into the love of TV, movies, and I loved all of that. And so it's a visual, those are visual mediums. And so and that's how I form my perception and worldview, is based on a visual perspective. And so when it started to go away, be taken away, then my OCD would get worse, and then the moral thought action fusion shit was really me losing my sense of self and perception of reality. And so it all makes sense, and I understand what the root cause is, but it's still challenging, and I deal with it every day. So
And
um,
and how is your sense of self now, at present?
it's weird. I sometimes I tell my wife, I have to grab onto things, to touch things, to know I'm here, because sometimes there's another aspect to the vision losses. I have something called photopsia, which is a flashing of light. So most people think blindness is, everything just goes dim and dark, right?
Hmm.
It's not. I have like a ton of visual noise. Like I have flashing in my eyes that's always there, whether my eyes are open or closed. So I have this constant visual noise. And so I kind of use this analogy, and I apologize to those that are listening and watching it, but I've used this a lot. I'm dealing with is that scene in Back to the Future, the first one. Remember the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, when Michael J. Fox, Marty McFly, is playing Earth Angel, and his parents are dancing, and then
Yes.
this guy comes in and goes, "I'm cutting in, McFly,"
Yeah.
and and then he starts looking at himself, and he can't play anymore, and he looks at his hand, and he can see through it. It starts fading away. And that's kind of how I feel about everything. Like everything is fading away. And I have to constantly touch things to know that I'm still alive and existing, because I'll be sitting somewhere and I'm like, I don't feel like I'm fucking here anymore. Got to grab something, or. So that's my day.
Well, it sounds like grounding yourself in bouts of being triggered, like it's a trauma. it seems like, and I'm sorry if that's not, the right way to frame it, but, needing to ground yourself, it makes sense. And that's something uh, I do for different reasons when, if I'm triggered, to any of my traumas, and just needing to get in the present. And I know that's a very far cry from what you're describing. I don't lose the sense that I'm here and that I exist. What yours sounds like is that's a whole other journey that I can't even fathom going on.
Well, you are absolutely correct. It is a trauma and it is a loss. And that's one of the reasons my wife and I connected, because she went through, she found out she was dating someone. She found out she was pregnant. Simultaneously, she learned that she had breast cancer.
Mm.
So she had to have a double mastectomy. So she lost her boobs, and then she had a child, and then she lost her father like just shortly after that. And so we kind of bonded, trauma bonded,
Yeah.
on the fact of we're both experiencing profound losses.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you found in each other a connection that's, worth maintaining. And I think it's so hard, in this, in our very little life that we get, to find someone with whom we could share, a life. And I'm really glad. I'm really glad that for you, that you have.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I want to learn about your wife as well. But we'll get there. But I want to go back to how did you start expressing yourself creatively, and when was it?
I've early on, I knew I wanted to be a storyteller, and I learned to read as soon as I could learn to read, which is around 5 years old. I taught myself how to type because I really wanted to write stories. And every day I would write a one pager, which to me was fucking epic.
Mhm.
And then I would draw a picture on the bottom. And I just had like a handful of these. I had like maybe hundreds of just stories. And they were all like self contained little adventures, or they were approximations of something I'd seen on TV. And that uh, blossomed into me um, getting better at writing and drawing. Kind of, yeah, I like the way I draw now, but it's definitely not developed. It's like not, it's not like good, but I like it. But my writing is something I really worked hard on and continue to refine through being a teenager, then being an adult. I read and still read books about writing. I like to read. I'm an avid reader. I really like wordplay. I like puns. I like to study story structure, and that's just something that I think I developed more than any other skill. I can get tongue tied in person, and when I'm not confident, I can shut down. But whether I'm sad or happy or feeling good about myself or feeling bad, I can always write something that's true. And that's something that I maintain and feel good about to this day. Um, you
Was there a theme in your work?
Honesty, I think it's really emotional honesty. I've never shied away from being true to myself, being true to my perceptions, as I have them. And um, in terms of substance, though, there's no through line to substance until probably the last 10 years, when I began to believe in things, when I really began to form true perspectives about the world that, weren't shaped entirely through childhood. I'd say that my writings until, my 30s were just, oh, slice of life. This is how I think. and now a lot of my writing is informed by experience, informed by data, informed by having an intention. I think I was a writer in search of a message, and now I have messages when I write.
So how did you find the theater?
Theater was the outlet um, uh, in high school. It was not something I was interested in until my parents took me to see a production of Les Misérables when I was in 6th grade. And until then, the idea of live theater was like, who cares? I like movies, I like TV. But my parents took me kicking and screaming to see Les Misérables, and holy shit, that just changed my worldview. Like you could do this live, and it's different. They could hear me in the audience, I could hear them. It's interactive in the sense that the art is never going to be the same running time every night. um, and there was something really magical to theater. And then I saw a high school production of Little Shop of Horrors. And again, theater was not really accessible to me yet until I went into high school. And in high school, I joined in, and I just fell in love with it. And I could see a life of, working on theatrical productions, writing shows, directing shows, acting in shows where I'd be happy for the rest of my life. Um, Once I got into theater, it was a wonderful outlet. And
Was
yeah,
there a show that you were drawn to that you connected with that was like, this is the type of work I want to do?
that's a great question. Different stages in my life, different things have resonated with me. In college, it was the idea of a grand piece of the Mahabharata, Peter Brooks, his version. Although I never saw a production, I just read the teleplay, or I read the play and fell in love with the idea of it. The one
Hmm.
I go back to though is Les Miserables. I think that it does everything that I would want a piece of theater to do.
Hmm.
And with time, as I've gotten older and maybe a little bit more a little wiser, I've come to find more implicit, wonderful meaning in the stories within Les Miserables. I've never read the book. I tried when I was a kid, and I just like couldn't get past 20 pages of reading a description of like a candlestick. Like, you know, I was like, this this is not for me. But that
Right.
play, the music, really just it still knocks me out whenever I sit and I listen to it. I'm transported back to the theater with my mom and my dad, and that's an experience that you know I cannot untether from my love of theater. Just my parents knowing I'm gonna love it, and me saying, "No, I'm not, you fucking idiots," and then I was wrong.
Well, those are the wonderful surprises, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, so what happened? How was your development of, when you entered the theater, was it acting first or were you actually writing plays or how did that start?
Right. So I came in with just a pan interest in theater.
Mhm.
The day of my interview at UCLA was with Michael Hackett, um, who I love to this day. I've recently reached out to him, and we had a Zoom catch up. He was the professor of he was my directing professor. And when I went in there, I came in there with a play that I had written, and it was a play that was being produced at my high school. And my high school is awesome, and they said, we're gonna put on a show. You wrote this 2-act horror mystery about a werewolf. And so I came in there with my play. The play happened to have a character named Hackett in it, no relation to Michael Hackett. That was a
Mhm.
great entryway into our conversation. And we talked about that. We talked about the fact that I was starring as Charlie Brown in my high school's musical of, Your Good Man, Charlie Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at the time really interested in drama as literature. I had a drama as literature class, so I read a lot of plays, and I was asking Michael Hackett about the play Fuente Ovahuna.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just the triad there of interest, Michael's interviewing me for directing, but I'm talking about musicals, and I got a play I had written. He said, you're coming into the school no matter what. Like, there's no way you can't come here. So I came in with with Michael Hackett's encouragement to do everything. And so year one, UCLA's School of Theater, Film, and Television is really exactly what I wanted and exactly what I needed. They let you dabble in everything, or rather, you must dabble in everything. If you do not, you will be expelled from the program.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember there being some dissent among a lot of my peers, not all of them, but I loved it. This
Mm-hmm.
is the best thing for me because I want to understand how to rig lights well. I want to learn how to build a set. I want to learn how to be a better, more present performer. I want to learn how to direct. I want to learn how to write better. So I came in with an interest in everything under the sun. And funny enough, you spread yourself thin, jack of all trades, master of none. Year two, I was accepted to no tracks.
Mm-hmm.
no one accepted me into any of the programs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh man, I gotta tell you, that was the best thing that could have happened for me, because I was devastated at the time. And I went to Rich Rose, who was the dean at the time, and I said, "Listen, a lot of these people here have money. I don't. I come from no money. I am here to at least learn directing, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
even have that." And by this point, I had really wanted to focus on directing. And he said, "We're going to make this right." And I think he heard me, and he developed a side track for me and for Adriana Costa, my other colleague, my other classmate who wasn't accepted, who had come in for directing. And he brought in Nancy Keystone to teach us a course in directing,
Mm-hmm.
um, where, I was able to resume some proper studies. But I say it was good that I wasn't accepted into a track, because I think what I needed at that time was to force myself to learn a lot of other shit. Because when put into a corner and being told, you're not, or feeling like you're told that you're not good enough to be a director, I went and I studied everything on my own. I went and I began to study puppetry on my own. I went and I began to study writing on my own, forced to not have a track to contend with, to align myself with. I put everything into everything I learned from then on, forevermore, and I actually thrived in school from that point. Um, and I don't know if there's really a point to what I'm saying. I feel like I'm meandering, but it's okay. I'm holding you captive here because I'm interviewing you. Um,
Right. Mm-hmm.
um, but the uh, I wasn't accepted into a track. It devastated me, but I think it was really good for me. And I actually was re-ushered into the directing track when I think half of the class dropped out. And I came in as an outlier, with my own set of skills I had honed on my own. When I began directing in those courses, I was so outside of the vocabulary of my peers, though, that I definitely frustrated all of them. When I began to direct actors, and actors began asking me for verbs, like, I want a verb for this line, I want a verb for this line. And I was thinking, what the fuck are you talking about? Because it was just like, I wasn't taught this. This is so
Yeah.
beyond me. And I really had to learn things my own way. And I'm sure everyone that made it through the entire track went on and it does wonderful things with their directing careers. But I think that I really benefited the most in that. I was thrown headfirst into failure before I had time to fail any of those classes. And
Well, you learn a lot from that.
you do. You
Yeah.
have you have to survive when you feel like you're a failure. And that failure was the best thing that could have happened to me. I needed it at that point in my life. I couldn't coast on my perception of like what a director is. I had to figure out, well, is that what I really want to do? And it turns out yes, I do. But I needed to hold on to that passion outside of it and learn things my own way. And
So go ahead.
this is kind of when you came back into my life, was when I was put into the courses of directing and you were the TA for those. And
Right.
that's when we kind of reconnected. And once again, I'd say freshman year, my passion for theater was really ignited by you. And getting into do another class with you where you were there hands on with me as I worked, that kind of reignited and reminded me, yeah, I absolutely fucking belong here, and a failure isn't going to set me back in the long run.
Yeah, when I think about that that time, the way I directed was based upon how directors directed me.
Yeah.
And one of my very strong influences was Craig Belknap, and I interview him. I can't remember the episode number, but he had a way of creating such an energetic, loving, supportive environment, and I felt that's how I did my best work when I had that. When I didn't have that, it was very stressful.
Yeah.
And so I tried to emulate that because it was so important to me as an actor.
Hmm.
And I think Craig really he knows how to do that. And I've seen it with other directors as well.
Yeah.
And so my process was based on how could I create an environment where the actor could feel the most comfortable, confident, and free to create.
Yeah.
Because for me, I loved the process of rehearsal. I actually loved it even more than the performance because of the surprises, the things that came up in rehearsal, the discovery. That's what turned me on.
Mm.
And so that's how I try to direct as well when I was there at UCLA.
Well, I remember your rehearsals very vividly because, again, this is the first show I'd ever been in beyond high school. And it was just so different. Like, we're going to the zoo, we're doing a field trip to look at animals. Like, what is this? What's going on?
Yeah, character studies. Yeah,
Character studies. And like, I
yeah.
remember we're supposed to do this. um,
We went to the Santa Barbara Zoo, right?
that's right. And
Yeah.
gosh, man, I kind of cringe a little bit at this memory, but like we had to come in with like a performance piece of our animal, and I put no work into it because I didn't understand the concept of putting in work to theater. And
Hmm.
I remember I did my little meerkat thing where I was just kind of scurrying around like going, oh, I'm a meerkat. And I think I was first, which was probably good because everyone after me put on this elaborate, beautiful scene, some of them with like beautiful orchestral soundtracks. I forget the actor who played the father.
His name was Ben Hunter.
Ben Hunter, a
Yeah.
wonderful actor who did a thing with a gorilla. And
Hmm.
he was like flying through the air, like doing spins like a fucking ballerina. And I was like, what is this? Like, what have I gotten myself into? I put no work into this meerkat. And here he is doing a choreographed dance where it's just beautiful. But I remember that left a huge impression on me, and just falling in love with the way everyone took everything so uh I don't want to say seriously in the wrong way, but everyone was really serious about about their craft. Everyone worked really, 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 really hard to create these characters and help to execute this incredible vision. And I remember feeling this is a family, and I love this core group of people that I'm performing with. Even if I am, eh, admittedly, definitely the least rehearsed, least polished person in this group. It definitely left a huge impression on me. I mean, I loved the way you directed.
Thank you. Well, I think it really came from me loving the process, and that production was really, and I'm so happy that you are a part of it, because it's a very fond memory for me. It was really, in one sense, it was everything I wanted to do and be.
Mhm.
And then it was funny because my thesis production, The Balcony, Jean Genet's The Balcony, was a huge failure. And I mean, I fell into a really bad depression because of that. And I made a mistake, but I should have done what I did in Metamorphosis, but I didn't. But in terms of, I should have gone more. I should have stripped down the script more so it was more visuals, and I didn't do that, and I regret that. But um,
Well, can I ask? I mean, like, I know you're saying that's your failure, and so that's this is where we're gonna get into some revisionist history, okay? Because I saw The Balcony more than anyone at UCLA.
mhm,
I saw it 4 times. I was such a huge fan of it. I
mhm.
I didn't see the issues that you're talking about. I thought it was very visual. I thought it was very interesting, and I could actually follow it. I thought this is great. And I remember you feeling bad about it, and I was so confused. I was very confused at how, you know, well, here's Brian, and walking out of Metamorphosis, his head is held high. And I remember looking at you after The Balcony and thinking, what did a professor tell him this doesn't work? Like, what's going on? Because I thought it was great.
Well, thank you. I think what it was is, in one sense, I didn't get what I wanted out of it in terms of, uh, because in order for me uh, to connect, I need to feel what the audience is feeling, and I felt like, I think I should have cut it down a lot. I think I should have stripped some of the dialogue away even further, so it was mostly visuals, because I felt like some of the dialogue. I mean, the bottom line is, The Balcony always fails, even when it's done professionally,
Mm.
and it has a history of that. And Michael McLean, when he allowed me to do it, he hesitantly allowed me to do it, and
Yeah.
I think they knew that I was in for trouble. And most directors are with it, and I think I think the main thing was is I wanted to I think part of it was I wasn't able to create, like you said, that family environment where we all feel like we're a family. I felt like the cast was very disconnected from each other.
Mm.
And there was an incident where one of the cast members got very physical with another actor, and that was really devastating, because it almost became violent between me and the actor, because I was trying to get him to understand that he can't um, improv a violent scene. It has to be blocked for everybody's safety. And so that was always on, I was always worried about that. Another cast member, I think what it was is, I felt like everybody was insecure about what they were doing, and
Mm.
that was my fault. I should have, because I felt with the Metamorphosis, I was able to make everybody feel, or create, let me say, I shouldn't say make. I said I created an environment where everybody felt that they were comfortable and secure in what they were doing and the actions that were playing. I don't think I did a very efficient job doing that on The Balcony.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't tell from the audience, but I think that that you were in touch with that, and they're being out of touch. I think it speaks to a strength you have as a director, though. I think that some people might walk away from that, maybe unharmed, but it seems like that's still a wound, that you that you maintain to some degree. I thought the show was great, but I do think it's a mark of your character that you recognize why it didn't work for you, and maybe why it didn't work as well as it could have for your cast. But good on you for choosing a play that always fails.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I think it goes back to what I experienced as an actor, and I wanted those actors to feel the joy that I did in the process. And I felt like I was not able to create that environment where all of the actors were loving what they were doing. I think a lot of people were angry about certain things that the way I did things. Other people didn't understand it, and I wasn't able to clarify things. So there was a lot of just discombobulation and confusion. And I think, and I felt bad about it because I really wanted everybody to have fun. And there was also resistance as well. So it was an odd production, but as a learning experience. The only problem that I had with it is I didn't invite anybody in the industry. So I that was supposed to be where I was supposed to invite all of
Right.
my contacts in the theater industry, and I didn't do it. And then I ended up working at Starbucks immediately after I left UCLA.
Well, I don't think that you're a stranger to that experience, leaving UCLA and realizing, oh, what skills do I have except to work a job? I worked at Mattel. I was stocking toys. Um, I think a lot of us have stories like that. Not many of us, hop into the industry. I'd say it's more rare than not. Probably, less than 1% actually go on uh, to do work at least immediately after.
Yeah, I mean, I had some opportunity. I sabotaged myself. I mean, even when I left Cal Arts, I had an opportunity to do some professional acting, and I was like, no, I'm directing now. But that all was wrapped up in my vision loss too. I mean, that was an insecurity and stuff like that. But I want to thank you for the things that you said, because that means a lot to me. Because um, I'm so fucking disconnected from that world now. It's been so long, and I miss it. I miss the every aspect of it. I really I miss it because I lost that when I lost my eyesight, but that's my own fault, because I could have done it. Just I had to do it differently than everybody else. But I want to go back. What happened after UCLA?
So right after UCLA, I was at I went from Mattel to working at Schematic, which is an ad agency, and I worked my way up pretty quick there and became a creative assistant to the chief creative officer there, Dale Herrigstad. He's a super interesting guy.
And that was because of your writing ability, I'm assuming, right?
That is completely unrelated to anything.
Okay, I was totally wrong.
No, no, no. I wish it had come in on those merits.
Right.
I came in as a nice guy, as the office assistant, and I
Mhm.
quickly worked my way over to supporting the most creative, powerful person in the business, or
Mhm.
in the company, I should say. Um, and that job wasn't inherently creative. It was a lot of like booking travel, or like make sure his Emmys look good there, and make sure he has lunch on time. And it was a wonderful experience. But
What was his name? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Dale Herrigstad,
Okay.
he's very active in the ad agency world. I believe the movie Minority Report, if you've ever seen that, it was a Spielberg film from like 20 years ago.
Yeah. Mhm.
There's like live user interface that like floats like a computer. It's like holographic uh computer in the film, and he developed that in the movie. So he's kind of known for, known for this, known for that. But that wasn't inherently fulfilling, and I left to go work at another ad agency doing largely the same thing. And I attempted.
Why did you get into advertising? How did that come about?
It was the first job. So I work in advertising now, but so I did kind of a boomerang, but I initially got in just because it was a job. I didn't have money to coast. I was very important for me to have a job and support myself because I didn't have financial support, to live on my own. So it was very much a like, okay, well, you're done with college now, you got to live your life. And so that's what I had to do. And it was the first job that said, yeah, we'll pay you a salary and give you healthcare. And I was like, okay, I'm in. And just my in there was a peer of mine from UCLA, Jackie Honickman.
Oh yeah, she was friends with my girlfriend at the time, very close.
Erin.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Jackie's great. Jackie got me into the company, and ads were not like something I was, even familiar with that landscape. But that's how I got in. But I left advertising to do my first attempt at making a movie when I was 22, and I wrote and directed something, and it got together a group of UCLA friends, went out to Hanford to shoot it, and it was a horror movie. Did a great job. I didn't. The script I was more focused on writing things for my friends than I was telling a story that was that had intention in its telling, and I learned a lot from that failure. And from there, I eventually moved to Japan and stayed there for 5 years, running away from any prospect of having a creative career.
Now, what was the catalyst for that?
The catalyst was just wanting to have an adventure. I had no idea how I could break into the industry. I had been working on like Paramount Studios on Lemony Snicket, and I was like an off-camera voice for the little boy in the film.
Okay.
And I didn't like being on the set. I didn't like, in my mind, I knew like this is exactly the world I'm meant for. But my heart, I was like, what is this? Like, I have this rule where I can't look at this actor in the eye. I have this other person that's yelling at everyone to shut the fuck up. I'm like, this isn't me. This isn't the way I would want to make movies. This isn't like what I'm meant for. And I said, maybe I don't want to be in the arts in Hollywood. So let's do the opposite. Let's go all the way on the opposite side of the world. Let's just go away and decompress from.
But why there though?
Well, so I knew I wanted to go abroad, and it was like I began applying to different teaching jobs in different countries. There was like Taiwan as well, and I was offered a job in Japan, and I was like, that was the first one. Early bird catches the worm, so I went there. And stayed for 5 years because it was a stress-free existence. But that gnawing feeling of like, but I'm not creating, I'm not doing something that I believe in, that got to me. And I'd find myself doing creative projects wherever I could. I learned to speak Japanese, learned to read it, learned to really just live a life in Japan.
Sugoi.
Sugoi. Do you speak Japanese?
Not really.
It's okay.
I just know a word here and there. Yeah.
Nah.
Nah.
So yeah, like I was there. I began doing a lot of videography, just like taking a lot of videos and trying to find anyone that was looking for B-roll for whatever odds and end projects online. And somehow there was this documentary called Japan in a Day. It was co-produced by Ridley Scott for his production company, Scott Free Productions.
Mm-hmm.
And it was supposed to follow life in Japan following the Tohoku earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
I submitted like an hour of video, and then a few weeks later, I got a call from Scott Free Productions. They're like, "We want to talk to you," and they told me like, "We love your footage. We actually want you to be in this documentary, and you're going to be a representative of foreigners living in Japan."
Mm-hmm.
There's a documentary. They listed me as co-director, which is really bizarre to me, but
Mm-hmm.
I just gave them B-roll, but I'll take it. And it's a documentary about Japanese culture and Japanese life following this huge travesty, this huge tragedy. And I am in the middle of the documentary. Like 2 or 3 minute section about me and like living life there.
Mm-hmm.
And this might have satiated someone else, and they'd say, okay, well, I made it into a movie, a documentary. I'm done. I can move forward. And that just gave me the fever. And I'm like, I gotta make a movie. I gotta get back to my roots.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, my friend, one of my best friends from college, Hernando Bensuelo, he was also a peer of mine in my class. I don't know if you remember him.
I do not.
Well, Hernando Bensuelo, a great friend of mine, he said, "I'm going to make a movie. I want you to help me write it and star in it." And I was like, "That's it, moving back to America." And so I did. I left Japan within about a 3-week period and filmed a movie with him.
Now, were you in Japan when the earthquake at Fukushima?
Yeah. So I was I've been working for 3 years nonstop without a break in the town of Matsumoto, Japan, and maybe it was more like 2.5 years. And then I said I'm going on a little vacation, and I decided to go to Indonesia. And I went to Bali, and night one of Bali, there was a huge earthquake there,
Mm-hmm.
and I was terrified. It was really, really scary. And then I turn on the news the next day, and I see footage of an earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Wait, that's not that doesn't look like Bali." And I realized, oh my God, that's back home. That's right in Japan. So I had just missed it by 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back, the next week to find that Japan was a very, very different place. And I was dispatched as an emergency teacher to all the areas impacted most by the earthquake. So that meant I went to go live in Fukushima for a bit, and I spent a lot of my weekends doing volunteer cleanup, going to places where homes were wrecked or flattened, and cleaning up uh, toys, um, bits of scraps of life, and additionally, cleaning up.
When you say bits and scraps of life, are you talking about body parts?
No, I mean there were body parts, but I was more dealing with the remains of their possessions.
Okay.
But that became my life for a while, which is dedicated to work and dedicated to cleaning up after that disaster.
Now, how did that affect you?
Um, it's uh, I think there's a bit of like when I think about it now, I could feel my heart locking up, and I could feel tears at the back of my eyes. But I think there's some dissociation I have around it because it's pretty terrifying. Um, a lot of people lost their entire villages, entire towns that are just gone. Right, that means legacies of families you'll never know existed are just gone. And to go there after the disaster and teach children whose a lot of their families were gone, that really that was hard. um I locked away my emotion around the event, just living practically, doing my job, and kind of shut all that down. I think, you know, intellectually I understand the harm, but emotionally it was a lot to process, especially, you know, when you're living there where everyone has died and there's aftershocks happening every fucking night for months. You know, you just kind of, I guess, acclimate to the communal trauma there, and you just keep on moving forward. And I don't think I've really processed being there. And I don't talk about it much, but I know that it's pretty heavy in my heart. And if anything, I know it informs the compassion I have for people. I know the event informs the love I have in general for others, and my willingness to hear anybody out, because you don't know what type of life they've gone through. And yeah, it's funny. You know, I don't even think about that event happening and being there until someone else brings it up. But yeah, here we are.
Here we are. Um, I think I remember around that time we had talked. I don't. It was probably before that,
No, you're
the
correct.
earthquake
You're
and the
correct.
tsunami. But I remember because I had recently left Digital Playground, the adult film company, and I was actually I was actually in the process probably of my boss wanted me to write. Well, he wasn't my boss at the time because I had left, but he wanted me to come back and write Pirates. What was it, 3?
Mm.
And so I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then I was asked by Wicked Pictures to work for them, and I declined. And then we had connected and started talking about it, about you know, my experience working in the adult film industry.
That's right.
And
Because
and
I
go
was
ahead.
sorry. Please go on.
No, no, I was just thinking about that because I felt like there was something at that time that you were interested in learning about, or was this the beginning of how you went into the anti-porn activism?
Yes, this is great. So this is where a seed was planted by you. Uh,
Okay.
I
A pornographic seed?
an anti-pornographic,
Oh, okay, okay.
an anti one,
All right.
which is great. And we'll get into how you impacted my life again soon. But I was in trying to find an outlet. I made a website that was about international sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
I was very interested in, yeah, I saw this as maybe a means to a lucrative end where, like, okay, writing about sex is, you know, in my mind, I'm sex positive. I'm like, oh yeah, sex is cool, porn is cool, prostitution is cool. I had a very myopic view of the sex industry. It was
Mm-hmm.
very naive. It was very much, you know, I'm very much a product of my culture, my thinking at least. So I was making a website that focused on dialogue with people that were involved in the sex industry, and or highlighting, you know, perspectives of people who were working as prostituted persons or people in the porn industry. You were the first person I reached out to who, you weren't critical of me. You weren't like rude in any way whatsoever, but you did give me pause to reflect. And that, and I don't remember your verbiage, but it was something along the lines of like, the porn industry is dangerous and be careful of what you're getting into. And I it's probably not the word you used, but I remember putting a pin on that, going, huh, that's weird. In my mind, Brian's entrenched in there, and I think he's doing quite well by what it seems, but he's saying, Michael, no go. And um, I didn't think too much about it. I eventually just shut down the site because I was like, I'm attracting the wrong type of people to this site. There are people
Mm-hmm.
gross that are writing me emails, and the way they talk about women is gross.
Mm-hmm.
The way they think about women is gross. And I just thought that's just coincidence. Bad egg. Maybe the site just wasn't, attuned to the right kind of people. But coming out of Japan, within the year of being out of Japan, I met my partner, Amy, my wife, and she and I had a very crude sense of humor. We make very vulgar jokes. We're very sexual in nature. But you know, one day talking like kind of just flippantly in support of, prostitution industry, I noticed that she was a little disturbed by it, and I didn't understand why. The concept of being offended by the sex industry was completely outside of the way I thought. Because the way you think is the way you think. It's the curse of knowledge. Once you know something, you can't unknow it. But if you don't know it, how could you know it? And she got me a few books to just kind of educate myself a little bit more about the history of and realities of prostitution, firstly. And I read a few great books, and they really began to rattle the way I had always thought, which is that, uh, in the words of George Carlin, when I was a kid, from one of his comedy specials, um, uh, selling is cool, fucking is cool. Why isn't selling fucking cool? I probably mis quoted him.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I use that. I use that same quote because what happened was I was uh, I was a huge fan of George Carlin from very young, and I don't even remember where I saw him. I just remember that I bought Jammin' in New York
Yep.
when I was in at Cal Arts. So I was somewhere at 19 or 20, something like that. And I remember just watching it over and over and over again.
Me
And
too.
I think in that, that's where he said, selling is legal, sex is legal. Why isn't selling sex legal? And I went, huh, why not?
Yep.
And then when you're probably aware of this, HBO used to have a series called Pornocopia.
Yep. Yep.
And it's really just it's propaganda for the adult film industry. And all it shows is, porn stars going, oh, it's fucking great, I get to fuck all day, I get to make money, it's awesome. And there, you don't hear any of the adverse effects of being in that industry at all. You don't hear about the STDs, you don't hear about suicide, you don't hear about everything that's detrimental. And so I mean, I got into it thinking, having that George Carlin quote in the back of my mind, and then watching Pornocopia, where everybody's like, it's great, we're making money fucking all the time. Uh, and then I got into it and I saw what it was.
That's so interesting. I feel like, well, we the way we thought about porn is exactly the way you're groomed to think about porn,
Right.
because there's no money when there's no porn. When there's no money involved in, like, the absence of porn, well, there's no market for it. There's no market for being a mouthpiece for reality when there's so much to gain financially from exploiting people, and from profiting off of that exploitation. Um, I I had George Carlin entrenched in the back of my mind. I didn't have parents that were like, very like critical of it, at least to me. And so I just kind of went on mindlessly consuming porn. I was a big, I wasn't, okay, I wasn't a huge porn consumer. Like I didn't get into the more hardcore materials and I didn't watch every day, but I was a consumer.
And it's changed a lot. It's changed even now.
Yeah.
I have a friend who, his name is Paul Chappelle. He went to Iraq, West Point, reverse order, of course, and now and he became the peace leadership director of the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation, and now he started his own peace literacy institute. And one of the things that he and I talk about is the evolution of it, because where it's going now, we're talking about extended reality, virtual reality, and the danger of that.
Yes.
Um, and so when I started, the things that were, I mean, what I got into was really when the industry was trying to go mainstream. And that's what was about, was trying to take Pirates of the Caribbean and then marketing it to Blockbuster so that you could get it in the R-rated version. And that's how it was hoped to cross over, because I mean we did the premiere for Pirates at Grauman's Egyptian Theater in Hollywood, and so the idea was to really get
Yeah.
it more into the mainstream. But now and it was even then was becoming even more violent, more degrading, but it's changed a lot, even from when I was growing up. In the '90s, the mainstream porn. I mean, there's always taboo stuff, but now what what was taboo then is now mainstream,
Yeah.
and what is taboo today will be mainstream tomorrow.
Yeah. And that's a frightening thought.
Yeah.
It's frightening. Because porn is, I mean, wow. I mean, there's so many different ways to really broach the subject of porn, but the to go back and fill in a gap there to before we dive really in here. Um, got a few books from my partner that really influenced the way I thought about prostitution, and I said, well, what about porn? And I connected the dots there, and I began doing research to the porn industry, and I began reading a lot of books about porn, and actually befriending people that had uh, either done the research or who had left the porn or prostitution industries or the sex industry as a whole. And I'd say I became like a pretty vocal anti-porn activist some 5 years back. In about 2 years of really heavy activism, where I was reading and writing and researching every day and fielding death threats and fielding
You had death threats?
oh yeah, oh geez, death threats. I got, someone sent me photos of dead bodies. um Someone said they would rape my wife. So I really, it's funny. This is so interesting because um, porn is considered, some kind of like fucking underdog for freedom of speech, right? Like, like,
You
like
mean like Larry Flint?
oh yeah, oh fuck Larry Flint, but like really fuck that guy. But like,
He was at the AVN Awards when I was there in 2006. But yeah, go ahead.
oh
And I met his brother. But anyway, go ahead.
well, it's just like somehow, and again, like especially now, like porn is considered, it's been wrapped up in this, like, you know uh, being sex positive means being like pro porn, right? Like if you're anti porn, you must be like anti women's choice or anti freedom of speech. But nobody is censoring porn, right? 12%, at least 12% of all websites are porn, right? Okay, average porn site has, okay, now the stats are coming into my brain. Okay, the average porn site has 50 terabytes of porn,
Mhm.
right? The average website. 1 terabyte holds about 500 hours. Okay. And the average porn site has 25,000 hours of porn. You know how long 25,000 hours is? That's 3 consecutive years.
Right.
That's one site. There are more than 4 million websites with porn. Like, nobody's censoring porn. Porn owns the fucking world. But like, porn is such a weird, there's such a weird, disgusting stigma to being critical of it. Especially in the mainstream now, because as it is becoming more mainstream, it becomes an increasingly hostile environment to be critical of it. You can get fucking slapped, 3 ways from Sunday if on Twitter you just say like the wrong thing about being porn. Are you being critical of it? Like, oh man, you're trying to control women's bodies, tell them they don't have a right to choose. It's just like, we've gone so backwards on the issue. It's disgusting. Like, for fuck's sake, we still sell the movie Deep Throat back when porn was relatively very calm compared to what's happening today, calm compared to what was released with Pirates. Deep Throat is still something you could buy. Never mind that the star Linda Borman, right? She's gone on record as having said like she was physically beaten and coerced with a gun by her pimp husband to perform in the film. Like we know this. This is not like hidden information. It is out there. And yet, despite this information that we have, where it's recognized, okay, every scene where she's having sex, she's actually being raped, but we still sell it. Well, why is that? Like, why? I think you're going to say something.
No, I mean, but it really is in essence like drugs. In the sense that we don't care how it gets here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we don't think about, okay, well, what does it take to get cocaine into this country?
Yeah.
And how many people are killed and how much blood is spilled just to get that 8-ball into your pocket?
Yeah.
And it's the same type of thing. People don't want to think about how it's made. They want the high that you get from it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the high is, like, okay, you associate anything with an orgasm, you'll get a high from it, right? And like, implicit in pornography is the high is implicit in the high is a sexual script that is embedded within pornography. Like, and the sexual script is fairly homogenous. And once you begin masturbating to the script and you have an orgasm and you associate the images on screen with your brain via the limbic system to associate a high with the script. And the script is more or less like, all women enjoy all sexual acts perpetrated against them, including physical and verbal abuse. Women can be persuaded to partake in those acts by force and compounded with an orgasm. We could see how this plays out in day-to-day life, right? Like, porn is not the creator of misogyny. It's definitely just a medium by which to transport misogyny and patriarchy. I think that's an important distinction. But if we were to collectively become critical of pornography, I think if we were to become critical people who can analyze and recognize the harm inherent in what's happening in the sexual script, we can more readily identify misogyny as we see it play out in our day-to-day life. Why does marketing work? Marketing works for a reason. Marketing works because most people are mindless consumers. I saw that thing about that food. It makes me hungry. The porn is the same fucking way. Like, you are beyond being brainwashed into believing in its messaging. And the messaging, again, it's homogenous. It's frequently violent. And it's not like that they're acting. This actual documentation of women mostly being aggressed against. Like, I think there was a study, it was by Anna J. Bridges, and she found that is 88% of all porn has physical acts of violence, right? And of that violence, of 88% of the violence, 94% of it is directed at women. So what does that say? What does that say to us that we're associating orgasms with women being, uh, beaten? Uh,
Mhm.
it says a lot that we're so insistent on keeping pornography around. Um, do you think our world would be better? I know you know the answer, but do you think our world would be better in a world wherein we have porn, which is a documentation of people being verbally, physically abused. We have porn that literally rewires us to think differently about women. We have porn wherein women are literally trafficked in. A lot of sex trafficking that happens. Are we better in a world that has all that? Are we doing better off in a world that doesn't have any porn? Like I don't think it's a hard question. Like I think our world would be significantly better off if we didn't have pornography. I don't see these harm reduction strategies like, oh, we have ethical porn now. I don't see that as a benefit. I don't see things like OnlyFans as progress.
And then there's that. I remember that website that I for a second I thought, oh, maybe this is interesting. It's called Make Love Not Porn,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it was designed by an advertising executive for Coca-Cola, I think.
Oh, really? Oh, well, it doesn't. Not a surprise, but
Yeah, well, it was a woman. It is a woman, and it's the same story. Is the idea is that you're empowered through this porn, right? So, but the idea was that it was user generated porn that they take a percentage of,
is that
and the
mind?
and it, and I mean I haven't watched it, so I don't know what the difference is, but that was what I saw. I mean, there's like a TED talk on it where she talks about, I can't remember her name, but yeah, it's called Make Love Not Porn.
Yeah. Well, man.
I assume it's the same. I doubt. I think it's just different packaging on it.
It is the same. The people who are profiting from your ethical porn productions and the people who are profiting from your like, oh, this is consensual lovemaking porn, like they're making the same money from the other shit they're producing. It's not like a different group of people. Like don't have different packs of gangs. You only have X amount of distributors, and there's a lot of overlap between them. I guarantee that maybe there are some people who produce the more hardcore stuff that don't produce the ethical material, but there's no one that's making the ethical porn, which makes less money than the hardcore stuff, and they're not also dabbing their foot in the hardcore porn areas. I mean, I'd love to hear from someone that is really drawing a fine line in the sand in those distribution and production companies, who's profiting only from like what they call the good side, but it's all one and the fucking same. Either way, you're going to be, you know, getting women who and men who are more likely than not financially coerced into these situations, uh, who statistically or who are much more statistically likely to have come from a home where they were sexually abused, who are statistically likelier to have been shown pornography as a child. Like you're still, the ecosystem is the same. You could slap Coca-Cola or whatever you want on it, whatever company comes in here to make it like nice, but it's still all part of the same fucking package. It's the same thing. These people are still being documented, put online forever, unfortunately destroying a lot of their aspects for getting other work when they're found out, and then thus like slut shamed, unfortunately. There's so much to unpack in it. Let's just do away with it altogether. I'm going to push a button right now and we're going to get rid of porn altogether, Brian. And we're just going to push the button and be done with it and see how we end up.
Well, the button would also have to include patriarchy,
Yes.
military industrial complex, the all those things that exploitation, oppression. So if we get rid of those things, I think porn will go along with it.
I think I think that you'll find that they're inextricably linked, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like again, like porn doesn't create misogyny by itself. That's not how propaganda works. It's, you know, propaganda is a means of propagating an ideology. In this case, the ideology is patriarchy, to people through a barrage of mediums all saying the same thing. Porn is saying the same thing that a lot of other pieces of art are saying as well, which is that women are inferior to men, and that all comes from patriarchy. So
Mm-hmm.
you're right, pushing the porn button is not far enough. We need to go further. Let's just eliminate the patriarchy button right now.
Yeah, and I mean, the bottom line is anything, it's like healthcare, like profiting from healthcare. Like you're not going to get real healthcare when there's the profit motive. The same thing with the porn thing is you can't monetize a very intimate act, which is really should be based in love and so on. And it's my friend Paul talks about, who I mentioned earlier, Paul Chappelle. One of the things he talks about, like sex is one of those things. It's like a force of nature. It can be extremely creative or profoundly destructive, and it's a very thin line.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. I think that, were we removed from a patriarchy, is there room to monetize, sexual connection? I mean, I don't know. I don't think the idea would come up.
Right.
Frankly, I'm not against, the depiction of sexuality or sex in art when it's necessary to inform the story that you're telling, and hopefully you have a story that's worth telling. But
Mhm.
I think that
The balcony was very sexual.
it was very sexual. It was a sexual show. It probably creeped out everyone in your show that I was there so frequently, but that's not why I was attending. I came back because I thought it was a good story and I was supporting Brian's work,
I
and I thought
appreciate it.
it was good. But that said, it was very sexual.
Yeah. And
Where
it's odd because I told my girlfriend Erin at the time, like around, like it was after, I think it was like I had done the balcony, and as a joke, we had broken up and then we got back together, and like that summer, and as a joke, I think I said, what would you think if I got into porn, just as a joke? And I don't remember what her response was, but I wasn't even thinking seriously about it because I was like, I wouldn't do that.
yeah,
Even then, that was 2004 and I got into it in 2005.
right,
So, it must have been an undercurrent, but the reason I got into it is I had a massive, vision loss shift right when I left UCLA. And I got really scared and I was like, I'm going to go blind faster than expected because I was told I was told that I would have useful vision into my 50s. So I'm thinking I could drive, I can read. And I thought I have plenty of time, right?
yeah,
And so then I got out and I'm like, I have no fucking time. It's going faster than I thought.
yeah.
How can I make money with an acting degree and a directing degree? And I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do. And that's what I did. I started contacting the major companies, Vivid Digital Playground, Wicked Pictures, and that's how I got into it.
Yeah. I mean, you got in and I know that a lot of friends I knew were aware, and a lot of them wanted a piece of the pie, so to speak, because we saw how successful you were, and I thought, oh, I could get in. I could get into porn. I could shoot with a camera, and I'm glad I didn't. I'm so glad I didn't.
I can tell you this, like everybody that I know, even editors and people that I know to this day, most of them do not watch porn at all.
Yeah.
and they sometimes don't even want to fucking talk about it.
Yeah.
And even myself, it's really, I mean, I can't see it anymore, so that it doesn't matter. But and let that be a lesson. No, no, but but yeah, it's affected me, and I didn't have sex when I was in the industry at all. I mean, I'm not saying there wasn't opportunities, but I didn't, because I think the idea, my thought was, is when somebody came on to me that was in the industry, like a porn star, I would be like, you really don't want me, do you? You know what I mean? I like, you don't really, it's not like, this is about something else. This is about getting into another movie, or it's about, this isn't about who I am as a person. It's not an attraction based on the things that I am, you know, like, and so I couldn't do anything. I was really, and it always made me depressed. I was really, like, literally one of the graphic designers, who is an illustrator, very talented, drew a picture of me that I looked so sad, and I had a t-shirt on that said "kill me,"
Yeah.
because I was so evident about how depressed I was. Like, there, I wasn't hiding it. And I don't remember being like open about me, how depressed I was, but I
Yeah.
guess it was pretty obvious.
I think you wear your heart on your face, or at least, that's kind of my perception of you, or it was in college.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it, but maybe, yeah. Yeah.
Um, I I think it's interesting. You bring up that all these people that are associated, don't watch. Do you know what the average like turnaround for like one of them is, like, in the industry? Like, how long on average they stay?
Are
Like,
you talking about a performer?
um, no, I mean more behind the scenes. I know performers are very like, women are like 30% of women leave after one video.
Yeah, and there's a high suicide rate attached to that as well that's not discussed.
I believe it's like 18 times likelier to kill themselves than in the general population. It's something like that.
And I can tell you this, I've had conversations, and I can't really say who, but people that were, um, let me just say, that had power, and that it affected them too.
Hmm.
A- and so, um, yeah, it's tragic. And I mean, I think about, that comedy special with Dave Chappelle. I mean, I think that's the root cause, you know what I'm talking about? He did a comedy special where he talks about the book Pimp.
I'm not familiar.
Highly recommend it. It's a brilliant piece of comedy, but it also, I mean, it's so fucking powerful,
Yeah.
because he uses the book Pimp to describe why he left the Chappelle show.
Okay. Okay.
And it is profound. It is, but it's a commentary on capitalism and our society, patriarchy. It's everything that we've been talking about, but it is expressed so brilliantly. And and that's why I love comedy, because it opens people's hearts to listen and to hear things in a different way. And Dave Chappelle is a master at it. And that, if you get it, I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the special. It's on Netflix,
I could.
but it's one where he's in a small room. It's not one. It's not like it's not like an amphitheater or something like that, where there's 1,000 people or more. It's just like maybe a room of 100 or less.
Hmm.
And um, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I'm interested. It's funny, we've come, full circle from George Carlin to now Dave Chappelle. I know that Dave Chappelle isn't talking about porn industry per se, but it's funny how comedy can kind of open our hearts in one direction or another, no matter where we're at, and maybe lead us to think some ways that we shouldn't and lead us to think some ways that we should. Comedy.
Yeah, I mean, I think comedy is I think that one of the greatest tools for social change ever. Because if you can make somebody laugh
Yeah.
from an opposing viewpoint, that's where the dialogue begins.
Yeah, that's interesting. I so I'm not familiar specifically with that. I am roughly familiar with Chappelle's history, you know, of why he left and stepped away from the industry for a good time. I could only imagine though that there's, you know, as with porn, as with any entertainment industry, there's a lot of overlap, right? You know,
Mhm.
between abuse, sexism, racism, misogyny. Um, I imagine that's all there, and like the Venn diagram's got to be pretty overlapped.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure. And I mean, but I mean, he's talking about capitalism and what everyone, whether you work at fucking Walmart or um, you know, or in the porn industry, we're still being exploited.
yeah.
And um, it's just, I mean, it really is how do we keep our dignity and all of that? And in the porn industry, it's pretty fucking hard. It's really hard because um, you know, there's things that stay with us forever. Now, whether it be literally you know, disease or it be just the images, or I mean, I can't tell you, just walking into an office and hearing, oh my God, oh yeah, like all day, uh, it does something to you. And you wouldn't think so, but it does. It does. I don't know what it is, but it's I guess the sounds of exploitation. I don't know.
I mean, I guess it's good that you can hear that and recognize the exploitation. And it's good, you know, to hear that there are other people, even within, who have power that recognize. I mean, I don't know if it's good or bad that they recognize and they still make a choice to be a part of it, but it's, you know, it's everything is much more complex and complicated than simple um uh everyone has a story, right? And oh man, I don't know. I just kind of got chilled to the bone thinking about it. But yeah, man, porn sucks. Get off of it. I mean, you're fine, but um,
Well, it was funny how you chose those words. Get off of it.
oh
It's well, I'm saying there's two ways to look at it.
yeah, no, I see there's an unintended pun here, but I live a life of unintended puns, so
I think we all do to some degree.
yeah.
But let's get back on track a little bit. So, what happened after the anti-porn activism? I know you've made some movies, haven't you?
So yeah, uh, and just, you know, to put a ribbon on the porn thing, and I'm committed to a lifelong resilience to the porn industry. I don't think I can call myself an activist if I am not presently active. I think that
Mhm.
is the point of the word. It's to remind people, like, you can't just call yourself an activist, otherwise you're a slacktivist. So you need to be active or you're not an activist. Uh,
Right.
I'd say, like, I'm not active right now, but I do maintain and I do maintain my views that it is very bad for the world. It's very bad for children. It's very bad for men. It's very bad for women as a class. There are some outliers out there, who some rare exceptions who have had a wonderful time. Good for them. I'm glad they're not in harm's way, or so they think. But for the most part, it is a dodgy, trashy, cruel industry that exploits people to their death. That said, I, with all the death threats, of which I got a number, and I was sent photos of dead women. I don't know if it was something they had done themselves or if something they had found on some gore site, but I needed to decompress. Amy, my wife, was pregnant, and I was like, I need to not focus on this right now.
So wait a minute. I don't want to go too deep into this, but I do want to understand, why were you receiving
Oh,
those threats? What were, I mean, I know, I mean, I saw your post on Facebook and things like that, but what was it? Did you have a website or something that?
I did. I had 3 videos out there about my analyses of porn. One was about pornography in general. One was about the role of choice within pornography, and then one was about myths about prostitution. And so these 3 videos circulated quite a bit. Namely, my first one that was about me being anti-porn and why I was. That one circulated to such a degree outside of my personal like Facebook sphere. I also had a Facebook group I started, Men Against um, uh, Patriarchy, Porn, and Prostitution.
I think I remember that. Yeah. Okay.
And that page circulated pretty wide, but my video is what really got me in, because it was, I made a video, I shared it on my feed. It got shared a lot. It got 20, 30,000 views. And then like, that's all just tied right back to me. So people are finding my email address. People are finding ways to message me through Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. Find a place to reach me, and you got me. So I was getting a barrage of those threats everywhere. Um, it didn't really, it told me I was doing the right thing. It told me like I'm on the right side here. I don't give a fuck who in my personal sphere I offend with this perspective. I'm not on the wrong side. I know I'm right. If the alternative is people on the pro porn side saying I'm gonna kill you, or you should be shot, or I'm gonna rape your wife, pick your fucking side.
It seems so. I mean, to be honest, it seems so extreme. Even if anybody was in the industry, I mean, the people that I know, they would just be like, "Oh, whatever," you
Yeah,
know. But
I agree. It shouldn't be like, again, no one is censoring porn. Porn rules the internet. I don't know why.
right,
Like the soul. Um, I mean, I don't know. Maybe like I occupy the oppressor class in several ways, right? Like I'm white, I'm straight, I'm college educated. I occupy a few different intersections of privilege, and maybe the idea of someone that looks like a lot of porn producers do, and I assume, I'm just making an assumption, a lot of them look not dissimilar to me, or occupy oppressor class dynamics the way I do. So maybe something to that is just a red flag to a lot of people up there, but people fucking pissed off, like furious. And I don't get it. Like I really didn't get it. I don't understand it today, except that like I'm one fucking voice. It's not like I could take your porn away from you. I'm just a voice in a sea of people that are mindlessly masturbating drones. Like, what harm am I doing you and your consumption, your 50 terabyte collection you have on your favorite website, number one of 500 sites you have bookmarked because you're a creep. Like I, I am nothing. And yet just being that little nothing, that voice was enough to really um, welcome in a disproportionate response of like, you should die.
well,
Like,
I'm kind of paralleling it with like the NRA and gun control.
sure,
It's
yeah.
like they're trying to take away our guns, trying to take away our porn.
Except so this is what's interesting though, is that they find that like, yeah, that's largely right wing, right? That's largely the side of the right, and I would consider myself leftist. However,
Mhm.
people there's this assumption that like, well, people on the right are secretly the big porn users. No, they're not. Actually, people on the left significantly use porn. They use porn significantly more than people on the right do. Not that the right don't have their share of problems. There's a lot of fucking pedophiles on that side in government. But people on the left are kind of like the right-wing gun nuts when it comes to like they really are. They get so fucking worked up that they'll threaten to shoot you with their gun. Oh, maybe they're talking about a different gun. Oh, there you go. I've never thought about that kind of, and frankly, it's probably a lousy comparison. There's a lot of failures there, but right now I'm seeing it because like you threaten gun ownership on the right, they'll go nuts. You threaten porn consumption or the ability to have porn or operate a porn license or on the left, and they'll go nuts there. Even people that don't consider themselves feminists are suddenly very pro-feminist when you threaten their porn, and they say, "How dare you?"
Right.
Take away a woman's right to choose. Like, oh, suddenly you're a feminist now, are you? Well, that comparison aside, which I don't know if I feel good or bad about, yeah, people suck, and people harbor a lot of weird protective groupthink around porn. Like one voice is going to take it away from them. It's like that one voice like shook a beehive, and they're like, "Fuck this guy. You got to keep him quiet." Like, I don't have a like I'm nobody. I'm literally nobody.
Well, you're somebody because they obviously, I mean, that's really, I mean, that's, I mean, obviously you struck a chord,
right?
And it brought attention and so on. I mean, I guess to be unnoticed is even worse, you know?
I suppose.
So, I mean, maybe, you know, that's a case right there that people are hearing what you're saying. They just don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, I will say the response wasn't just that. I actually made a ton of friends since then, men and women, who were like, some people who already thought like this and felt like, okay, that's cool. Someone is speaking up. And then there's some people that were convinced, and either they came off or they told me they were leaving it, and they haven't. It's a drug. It can be hard. I get that. But I did meet a lot of great people and a lot of wonderful people who continue to educate me, and you know, from their work and their perspectives, I continue to draw strength in my, you know, affirmation that porn is wrong. Stop watching it, you fucking bozos that are watching. If you got a second tab open right now and you're watching this on the other one, close the other tab, okay? Do it.
Clear your cache.
Or if you don't clear it, I will print it out and I'll send it to your employer.
And you have that capability.
I don't think I can get into that. I have to break into their home.
Oh, okay. I thought I didn't I thought maybe you were alluding to you have some computer skills.
I do, but I'm also not crazy. And I'm not going to contact your employer. Just stop watching it, please, you fucking bozo.
All right.
Sorry. I'll stop calling people. I don't know that your listeners are like, sorry, I'll stop.
No, it's all right. I understand. I hear your passion. It's you know, but ultimately, I think we're talking about the same thing. There's a root cause here, and it really doesn't have to do with porn itself. It has to do with our culture, our society, and how we interact with each other. Which is, you know, we live in a culture of violence, and that comes from patriarchy, racism, exploitation, oppression, and the profit motive. So those, you know, it like Trump, porn is a symptom of our society.
Yes. I agree. I agree on
Yeah.
all counts.
So let's talk about your film career. I know you had a movie that came out relatively recently, did well in some festivals, and
That's right. So I wrote and produced and directed a movie. Hot off the tails of nothing ever happening for me, in terms of like an actual creative career. I um I told myself, well, I want to make a movie. And
mhm,
um, Amy, my wife, became pregnant, which was very welcome. We wanted a child, but um, it was kind of like a well now or never. And why wait for someone else to make this happen for me when I could just teach myself how to do it? So I told myself, okay, it's November, but in April I'm going to shoot a movie. And so I wrote a script. I liked it. Then I rewrote it. I liked it some more. I rewrote it 12 times until it was something I really liked.
mhm,
Um, a dark comedic thriller that would have appealed to both my mother and father. My father, who loved screwball comedies, and my mother, who loves thrillers.
mhm,
And I thought I want to please them both, which was impossible, as you can imagine, growing up, if they like things that are so dissimilar. Um, and I said, I'm not going to wait for someone else to fund this, because if someone else brings in their money, then they'll own it and they can control it. So I'm going to use my life savings. And so I pulled together that. I got out 4 big loans, and then I began to form a company so that I can use SAG actors, and I became a SAG affiliate producer. All of this, I didn't know how to do any of this, mind you, back in October. By November, December, January, I had done the research into everything. So I knew exactly how to break down these steps into something that was actionable.
mhm.
I began to amass a cast that believed in the script, and then a crew, which was began through Craigslist and then brought on people that knew people that knew people. And then before we knew it, in April, we filmed across 14 shooting days, just 2
Now, when
weeks.
you say April, you say April of 2020?
So no, this is April of 2018.
Okay, okay.
Um, so it's funny, pre-production to production is a very fast cycle because that was driven by a desperation, and then post-production is a long fucking stroll. Um, Filmed
Right.
2 weeks, and then I was just about to hit the festival circuit a year ago or 15 months ago, and I had some interest in some festivals. And then the pandemic happened. And I told myself, well, shit, with festivals being canceled, there's going to be a huge bottleneck of content when festivals reopen. And so I'll never get a shot. But then the virtual festival circuit began, and I heard from 2 festivals that were dream catches for me, which were Cinequest and Austin Film Festival, and those are bucket list catches.
Mhm,
Um, I didn't know if my movie was any good. I thought it was good for me because I made it for myself. I made
mhm,
it because I believed in it, and I made something that would appeal to my interests. But it spoke to other people too. I suppose that specificity, did reach a more general uh, pulse among some people that like thrillers or comedies or horror. And then it wound up playing something like 30 or 40 festivals in the last year, and got scooped up by a distributor where we were distributed about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And
So now you built it up. I
yes,
need I need 2 things. I need a name, and
yes,
then I also need just a synopsis.
absolutely. So the movie is called Murder, Barry, When, and is about 3 young guys that want to strike it big in the indie board game scene with their game, Murder, Barry, When. But when their attempt to crowdfund the game fails, and they think all hope is lost, a mysterious benefactor comes along and offers to publish their game on the condition that he be listed as the sole creator.
Hmm.
And one thing leads to another, and the three young men wind up with a dead body on their hands. And knowing that it looks suspiciously like murder, they turn to their game for some guidance. And the premise of their game is how to kill someone and get rid of the body. And that is the movie.
Okay. Okay.
And it is a love letter to screwball comedies and thrillers. And I'm very proud of it. There were 3 million things I would change if I were to film it again today. But that's just, that's how art goes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember night one of Metamorphosis. As soon as the show was done, we gathered backstage and you gave notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gave notes. And I remember thinking like, oh, cool. Like, we'll just make it better. And I remember at least a few of the actors grumbling in your face, like, why are you giving us notes? We've opened. And I was like, what? He wants to make the show better. Like, is this a problem? Is this not standard? But you know how it goes. Sometimes you just want to fix something.
Yeah, and that, like I said, that alludes to the fact that I love the rehearsal process more than I do
Yeah.
the actual production or the show.
Yeah. I remember you're like, Michael, you missed your light. And I was like, oh, well, then I should know this information. Have this information. And
you remember my notes. That's amazing.
Dude, I remember all your notes. I remember being defensive over one note in a rehearsal and then being shut down by literally the entire cast who said, no, Brian's right, Michael. And I remember, this is an exercise in humility. I'm going to take this and be better. Because I was a three-headed woman. I was one of the lodgers. And my two other heads, Michael Twaits and Anna Landa, we are supposed to walk in sync, and we kind of did a side skip with our knees, and I was so not in sync with them. Like, they looked like they were two peas in a pod, and I was just the rancid one on the end. And like, just like, you were like, Michael, your movement's not lining up. And I'm like, yes, it is. And then the cast is like, Michael, no, it's not. Look in the mirror. And we did it. And I saw myself and I realized, oh my God, my physical timing is awful. but which is to say, sometimes you make something and if you could control it, I understand the desire to do so. And I would change things if I could about my movie, but I can't. So I will live with it, just as you had to live with the fact that I had maybe the worst physical timing on the stage in your second year show.
Do you have a photographic memory?
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I was gonna say I sense that your memory is pretty sharp.
Because we're here, can I give you a confession about something that maybe you've forgotten about, but I haven't, and I need to tell you?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So, do you remember, and I hope you have forgotten, and I hope everyone's forgotten, do you remember, like, during Metamorphosis, opening night, but like someone was in the audience doing flash photography with like one of those wind-up cameras?
I don't remember that.
So good. I'm so glad, because I remember going backstage and I had heard about it, and the everyone was livid. People fucking furious. Who is that? And I thought it was me, because I was on the side of the stage recording with my camera, but there was no flash. And I thought, oh no, they're mad at me. I go out to greet my parents who are in the audience, and my mom says, Michael, I got so many good pictures of the show.
So it was one of those ones that went when you had to wind it up and it made a lot of noise.
I was like, Mom, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
No, yeah, honestly, I do not remember that. Truthfully, every memory I have of Metamorphosis was a very joyous one. Every aspect of it, from beginning to end. So, I do not recall that. So, yeah, it's all good.
Well, I mean, I'm not here to beg for forgiveness. I just want to like let you know before we die, this is something that happened. At
Well, well, actually, I'm kind of honored because that your parents enjoyed it so much that they wanted to capture it. So yeah, that's great.
I have all of those pictures of the show in my drama photo collection. Uh,
Really?
oh yeah,
Do
oh
they, how do they look?
they look great. My mom's focus is a little fucking bad, but like you could tell the set design and the costumes and the lighting is amazing. And
I actually lost my disc of photos from the designers. Remember Valerie,
yeah,
Teresa Bart? Yeah, I don't even have them anymore. So if you have them on a drive, I would love to. I mean, I can't see them, but my wife can at least.
I can definitely get those two. Do you also have the soundtrack still?
I, you know what? Trevor and Casey, they made it on like the little mini, and
Mhm.
I have that somewhere, but I don't have like a CD or anything.
I just send you the whole thing when I could put that together.
Yeah, but I mean, if you have time, don't, I mean,
Oh, it's like 20 minutes. That's
okay, okay. Yeah, I'd love to hear it, and I'd love to show my wife the photos because it was it's a really wonderful memory.
it
Uh,
is. I wish so. I one day during dress rehearsals, I snuck out because I was on stage like 10 minutes total. So I'd sneak out and I was recording bits of the show from the back of the house because I wanted to see the show.
mhm,
And I just remember being struck by like, you had this opening blocking sequence where the family gets together and they form a giant cockroach together.
mhm.
You have Ben on the stilts and Bianca and Suzanne and who played Gregor?
Michael.
Michael. And the four of them together, creating this huge writhing bug. But when you're seeing it from side of the stage, you don't get it. But from the house, you just see a silhouette of a giant insect.
Mhm.
Just thought, man, this is the coolest fucking show, and I'm in it. And so I have that video somewhere, but I have no idea where it would be. But I do have photos, mostly of my sequences, but there's some other cool stuff in there too, which really, it was to my benefit, but definitely not to the other actors who were livid. And I was too much of a coward to tell them that it was my mom.
That's okay. I doubt anyone remembers,
Oh,
but
I,
we,
rem- I remember her very well.
Lindsay might remember.
Oh, yeah. I bet Lindsay would remember that.
I have to interview her because she's hilarious. She's very funny.
Yeah, Lindsay's
But go ahead. What?
Lindsay's great. I haven't spoken to her since college either, but I remember really, really liking her.
She's in your area, so
That's right.
you know.
She moved here to teach at a school.
Well,
Uh,
she was like a kind of a production manager for a series of schools in the Bay Area.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
But anyway, so you have this movie and congratulations and it did well on the festival circuit.
Thank you. Yes, did well. I'm satisfied, and now it's out for everyone to rent on demand.
So where can we watch it?
So the simplest way to find a link is through my website, murderbarrywin.com.
Hmm.
Otherwise, if you just do a search, it pops up everywhere. And if you want to torrent it, don't
Hmm.
do that. It's like $4 to rent it, and it'll be on streaming before long. Um, I'm not sure where we're gonna land, but we will be streaming on a service at some point. I'm assuming in the next 6 months or so.
So we're talking Amazon Prime, Netflix, what?
Yeah, hopefully something like bigger, but it is available to rent through Amazon now, for instance. It's also
Okay.
available physical media, DVD, Blu-ray, and iTunes. You could rent it or buy it. It's literally anywhere you could buy it. Anywhere you could buy it, you can buy it.
Okay. So what's in the works? What's coming next?
I have a few different projects. I definitely want to make another film, and I have them tiered is bronze, silver, gold, and platinum budgets. And if I'm paying for it, I'll take on the bronze. If
Hmm.
someone else is paying, then they could take on the silver, gold, or platinum ones that would cost quite a bit more. They're all in the vein of my sense of humor, and probably dabble in horror a little bit more.
Hmm.
Alongside me on any project, of course, is going to be my wife, who was the production designer for my film, and Jonathan Snipes, with whom we went to school at UCLA, who did the score for my movie.
I remember him. Yeah. Yeah.
He's doing really well, and he's got some amazing music with his rap group, Clipping, if you've ever heard of that. Um, Clipping is experimental rap with David Diggs from Hamilton. He's the vocalist, rapper of the group, and
Wow.
Bill Hudson is the other in their trio. Bill Hudson went to school also with us,
Okay. Okay.
and so I
We'll,
work.
we'll we'll tell Jonathan I said hello. I haven't seen him in a long time.
I will. I will. So Jonathan and Amy and I will work on something. I don't know what it is yet, but when it's right, then I'll just get a fever around it until I finish it.
Excellent. Well, we're looking forward to it. I have not seen your film yet, but I want to watch it now that I know all about it. And so before we depart, let's talk a little bit about how you met your wife and um, and and how that relationship developed.
Absolutely. So, OK Cupid. We were an OK Cupid date. She was like the third or fourth person I met on there. I was lucky number 31 for her. She had been going on dates kind of every weekend because she was depressed and just kind of like seeking connection, and we connected immediately. We met at the Rockridge BART station in Berkeley and walked to the cemetery for a cemetery picnic.
Mhm.
We shared a sense of humor, a dirty sense of humor. We had also just finished making a film, like my film I was in for my friend Hernando. I just finished filming that, and Amy had just finished filming a movie that she starred in called Felt, which actually did really well on the festival circuit and is also available. Um, and we just had a lot in common. We both loved costumes. We both loved, being theatrical and weird. And shortly into our relationship, which was just firing on all cylinders, we just bonded really strongly. Shortly into our relationship, we began to challenge ourselves in the way we thought about the sex industry, and so we grew politically, and the way our minds sharpened were along those lines. And we just continued to do creative projects together. She got a gig working on some Modest Mouse music videos as an art and costume director, and I got to tag along and help her. Um, her movie was really good, and I really loved her work in it. And she also now with our almost 3-year-old, we do monthly family portraits through some weird costumes that my wife makes. And last month we went viral, as viral as you can get, when we did a Lord of the Rings photo shoot, wherein I was Samwise, my daughter was Frodo, and my wife was Gollum. And
So
the
what platform did it go viral on?
So we shared it on Facebook and on Reddit, and immediately they went wide on both. And
Oh
now
wow.
we have people resharing on Reddit like every other day.
Hmm.
And we're getting just a lot of followers to our family Instagram account to see our family portrait series. The Gollum one is it's just really fucking hilarious because Amy looks like Gollum. She looks exactly like Gollum. She got some huge glasses, round glasses, and just painted the lens of each glasses like Gollum eyes. So she looks like she has oversized Gollum eyes. And our daughter makes an adorable little Frodo. And I'm on my knees with like little fake rubber feet at my knees. So it's just like, it's wonderful and really weird in every way. And it just kind of scratched an itch for a lot of people. And now we are actually a meme about how our daughter needs therapy. But she just needs to show the therapist the photo, and that'll explain everything.
Right.
So we will live forever in a meme, of which I am immensely proud, because it showcases my wife's creativity and my daughter's uh, very photogenic self.
Well, I'm thrilled for you, and so happy that you've created a wonderful life and that you're achieving success, and it's really an honor to know you. And like I said from the beginning, I always appreciated your warmth, and you had such a joyful spirit, and I deeply appreciate that inquisitiveness, and I appreciate everything that you are. And thank you. Thank you for being here. And could you please share your social media and website where people can find you?
Absolutely. So it's murderberrywin.com is the simplest thing. Even my personal website will redirect there. So just go where the iron's hot.
Okay.
Twitter and Instagram, I am at Michael Lovan, but that's one L. So it's MICHAELOVAN.
Okay.
And my family, if you want to see an awesome Gollum photo, is at Everlovan, EVERLOVAN. That's Amy's last name is Everson. My last name is Lovan, and our daughter's last name is Everlovan.
Okay.
Um, but just to swing back around to the subject that is our connection, Brian. I am really moved that you would ask me to be on Blind Man in Black with you. I'm really proud of you for putting this together and for creating this outlet. I think that that's really rad. I love the reach that you got. I love who you're bringing on. Whether it's Aaron Feinstein or Mel Shapiro. I just think it's really fucking rad to see that you're doing this. And I was your fan in college. Like, I'm not a fan of many people, but I was your fan. I was the guy that got what you were doing or wanted to get what you were doing. And you really profoundly influenced me, and you left remarkable impressions on me freshman year. And then when you were my TA, I think sophomore, junior year. And then again, when I reached out about porn, and you're like, nah, you got me three strikes, and it's always been for the better. And though we don't talk, we haven't heard each other's voice um, in nearly 20 years. Oh,
Yeah.
15. That's quite 15, not 20. But I always felt that we could pick up as though no time had passed if we talked again, and that's definitely the case here. I appreciate you. I love you, and I think that you are really cool, and I'll always think you're cool, unless you get back on the porn wagon, and then I'm gonna wag my finger in your face.
Well, let me say this. I have had 4 opportunities to get back into it, and I've refused all of them. I mean, there was one in 2013 when I was not making any money, and I was really worried about my life,
Yeah,
and I almost got back into it. And the way I turned it down was to ask for an astronomical fee.
yeah.
And of course it was denied, and I knew it would be, but yeah, I I have not been able to go back, and there's a reason for that. And everything you said I deeply appreciate it. It means a lot to me, and I will cherish it for my entire life. Um, and I love you as well. And let's stay in touch. Let's keep connected. And I hope that we can do this again, and we can talk about your next film and the one after that, and so on. And let's stay connected. And I love you, man. And thank you for being here. And everybody, this is Michael Lovan, and I'm your host, Brian Snyder. And you can follow me on theblindmaninblack.com, or go to the YouTube channel or Apple Podcasts. Thank you, buddy. And now we're going to have an awkward ending.
I love it.